How do we connect all of these people? How do we get these people to talk just like they're sitting in the same room? We don't know where we're going to be. We could be on base. We could be off at somebody else's location. We could be downrange. We could be deployed. How do we make sure that that person, no matter where they are, can light up their device, have an easy connection wherever they happen to be? We don't necessarily need somebody to set up an infrastructure, right? We want to use and we want to integrate with what's there. The real stretch is going to be security.
All right, welcome to another episode of DIB Innovators, hot from the Space Expo in Anaheim, California. Here today with Jonathan Sorensen, Solutions Engineer in Military and Aerospace for a company called ClearComm. Jonathan, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and then roll into the ClearComm story.
Yeah, so I guess my kind of career progression kind of follows ClearComm's history as well. So started in the music industry, started doing live events, recording music in studios, kind of transitioned into broadcast, doing live sports, the engineering side of that. So I was a broadcast IT engineer. Started working a little bit in the movie kind of broadcast side of things. And that's kind of where I moved into ClearComm and was more focused on our commercial side of the business, which has a heavy presence in live events, broadcast, sports, theater, that entertainment side of the world where communication is critical for the show to go on, if you will. And then about 3.5 years ago, transitioned over to our military, aerospace, and government side, which really is kind of designed to take all of those commercial products and workflows and processes and offer them into that military space. And it was a easy transition for me as well, just having this, signal flow kind of mindset in how do we connect all of these people? How do we get these people to talk just like they're sitting in the same room? So it's kind of the similarity, I guess, between my personal journey and ClearComm's journey as well is, starting off in something that most people would consider, fun, right? Entertainment.
Yep.
And moving that into something that's maybe a little bit more serious and taken with a little bit higher standards. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I got to go then to your personal story. So, coolest music thing that you did.
I mean, I just have to say, just anything working at Red Rocks in Denver, Colorado, it, obviously bucket list for most people.
Red
in the
Rocks
industry.
rocks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going to shows there is one thing, but being able to walk down the hallway, all that, that was awesome.
All right. How about sports and then, sports or movie? Just kind of give me your highlight of a memory that comes out of those journeys.
Well, so I was working for the Colorado Avalanche at the time. I'm originally from the Midwest, so a Red Wings fan. And
Go Avs.
yeah, it was very rare that the Wings would come into Denver, but when they did, I'd always liked that. It was always a really cool thing for me to be able to have this home team ownership that I, worked for and worked with, but then see them play the team that I kind of grew up watching. So that was always cool.
That's awesome. All right. So back to ClearComm. So what is ClearComm's, real value prop? What are they delivering commercial? And then how is that spilled over into the government side?
Yeah, so I think the core of what we do is we provide full duplex, real-time and non-blocking communications. Those fit very
Let's break those down a little bit more for, knuckle dragon fighter pilots like myself.
Yeah, so it's all of those things are how we're talking right now. That seamless flow of communication, the ability to pivot from a conversation with you and I one-on-one to being able to go out and address a larger audience and then pivot right back, walk down the hallway and have a private conversation between ourselves and then go into a conference room and be able to, say that to everybody there. A lot of the features that we have in our system facilitate that same sort of interpersonal communication that we're all used to in kind of the real world. So the full duplex part of it, that's where we kind of differ from a traditional radio where I can be talking and you can interrupt me, right? We can have that feedback type conversation. I don't have to say something, clear the channel so that you can, give me that feedback and that reply. So that's the first part of it that sets us, aside in the comms world, is being able to smoothly have a normal conversation just like we were sitting here today. The other side of it is, the non-blocking side is, if we use the traditional radio kind of model again, you might have multiple talk groups on your radio, but in a lot of times you can't easily get to those all at the same time, right? You have to roll over to the next talk group to be able to talk to it. You might be able to listen to a couple. There's a lot of radios that are higher end that'll let you do a little bit more, but there's still some limitations there. Whereas we present it to the user all in one form factor where they can choose what they want to listen to. They can listen to multiple, feeds or multiple channels coming in. They can choose the levels to set their own mix so they're comfortable. Something's more important than something else. They can give that a little bit more presence in their ear. But then also being able to really quickly with their fingers be able to choose what they want to talk to in a multiple talk sense. So they can talk to multiple radios at the same time, other sites, they can talk to, everybody all at once or just one person individually.
So very cool. So how did the idea to go to the military side and probably fairly natural? And then how was that journey beginning to do that? Because that's not necessarily easy. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, at least, for ClearCom, I wasn't, in this position when they started kind of venturing in, but there's a lot of places that I even see today, where we kind of start with companies. And a lot of it is in the early stages. It's the test and evaluation. It's the manufacturing that has some fairly high stakes and expensive operations. And then once they kind of, get through those qualifications, they're getting into simulation. And in most of those stages, you might not need something that's, fully certified, qualified with every agency and everything out there because you're not talking at a large scale right then. So we're starting small for these companies, which gives them a chance to, get into a system that can expand with them later. And then we start seeing how these things expand and we can interface with an ATC radio. So now that system that they were using in their test, right, in a small site just for them, can now start branching out to talk to the ATC. They're doing something where they're taking off in one place and landing in another. Now they can have an ATC here and then a remote radio they're talking to on the other side. So it really kind of creates that progression, more matches of what the customers are doing and how they're getting into the bigger things. And then from there, a lot of those products, those platforms, get adopted by the military or, a larger aerospace effort. And that's where we start seeing kind of these other qualifications come in, these other certifications that are required. And we work with the customers, the end users to match those things. And we're a small enough business, we're agile enough where we can take those requests and we can, sneak them in on feature requests and build them into our products that more or less are supported by the commercial business. They offer something valuable to the commercial customers as well. Enhanced security. Yeah, everybody will take that. We're talking about large money meetings. We're talking about, high stakes acts that are flying down from trapeze. Those things matter. So now we're able to take that and move those features in where they really need to be for the military.
And well, talk to me then some of your products that you're out rolling out to the government side.
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of our products, we try to keep things, as real time as we can for the voice side of it. When somebody says stop, we want the stop to be when they said stop, not a couple seconds later. So we try to keep things analog, but that's not really where a lot of the world is living anymore. So we're starting to move into infrastructures that we're seeing in the DoD already. So, we knew that the DoD was looking at 5G LTE private CBRS for a larger blanketed infrastructure. Not just for comms, not just for IT, not just for, other platforms. That's going to be an infrastructure. So how do we look at that and how do we do something? So we just came out with a new product, our FreeSpeak Cell beltpack, and it's designed to use that infrastructure that is being stood up for other systems. So it really lets us kind of get into that approach of when we're looking at our products, we don't necessarily need somebody to set up an infrastructure, right? For a comm system, we want to use and we want to integrate with what's there. So the progression has been from analog into using IP. And now this IP is starting to go a little more wireless, right? We don't want to be tethered to something. So following that, that's kind of our product progression has gone. We're seeing a lot of success with FreeSpeak Cell being able to integrate in with existing systems.
What are the biggest challenges working in like contested environments? As you get it with the military, you have to deal with that? Where have you seen is the newest technology always best, older technology, or where are those pivot points that you're trying to expose the challenges?
I think it's different at every location and for every company, and depending on what their relationship at that site looks like. Who's the owner, who's the customer, who's using the test, who's running it, who's funding it. But that's always going to be a challenge, is trying to keep up with that. So we see a lot where some of our systems have been in for 20 plus years and there's no need to change it because it's rock solid, it works, it solves the need. But then all of a sudden there's a modernization that might come in for that facility to do something newer, and they decide they want to, modernize that infrastructure as well. So then there's where that challenge comes in, is, one, now the end users dealing with a whole set of certifications that they have to comply with. We're trying to fit in with them and try to get in there. But then there's also compatibilities with other systems we might be tying into. So where are we at with the horse and the cart on that race? And sometimes one passes the other. So, I think it's, at least for us, it's really kind of staying in tune with our end users, following what requirements we know are coming out from the federal government, and trying to make sure that while we're working with the end user to get into that contracting phase, if you will, to get an actual system delivered, how do we match that? How do we make sure that when it gets there, all those other subset requirements are there for you, whether it be a feature or, making sure something's sourced in the US, making sure, lead times even might, fit the need for what they're trying to do. So it's certainly a challenge. The timing, I think, is probably the hardest challenge. Everything's moving so fast right now.
That it is. And so how do you see, to meet the things that are happening so quickly, the changes, are you driving that from the military side of ClearCom, or is that coming from the commercial side? And then how does that interaction happen?
Yeah, so I think it really comes from both. So I mean, obviously, at least for me, listening to the end users, the military, even the aerospace side, because I think we all know aerospace is feeding very heavily into DoD. Listening to the challenges that they're up against, especially in aerospace. A lot of these companies are trying to develop something that solves a need for the DoD so that the DoD or the military can use those things. That's a delivered package on their end. So we want to be a part of that. We want to help them and facilitate that. Um, just trying to kind of tie it all together, I think, is probably the more challenging part. But we always try to look at where are those similarities between the commercial business and what we're doing in the military. And if we can take what we know in the military to be very firm requirements, very spelled out standards, and set those into our product line that answer the looser questions over on the commercial side. I don't know if that makes sense, but then everybody wins on it. And the things that we've, essentially developed that meet those needs over here are something that everybody on the commercial side sees and says, yeah, we want that. We want some level of confidence that someone can't just drive up to the venue, connect a belt pack, and hear what we're doing.
So where's the innovation coming from? Which side?
So the innovation, I think it really comes from both, but at least for us, we try to look at it as, if we're going to put something in, it's going to be in a commercial product. So if we're going to develop that, is it something that is going to eliminate from the commercial marketplace? So we try to keep everything, all of those requirements from the military side, we try to keep them viable in our commercial products. So it doesn't disqualify one side or the other, right? They're both able to do it. And really for us as a company, it helps us sustain that product longer, because we know in the commercial world, people are a little more apt to take change on. It could be a couple of years. Yeah, I'll change the whole system over. That's fine. But in the military, that could be a lot harder to do. So, they might not need something for another 5 years, but if the commercial world is saying every 2 or 4 years, we're going to cycle things, but the military is saying, no, we need it for longer. If we're able to keep that same product line there, keep revving things up on the commercial product so that 5 years later, when the military says, hey, we need more of that now, it's still a very viable product. It's still there for them. It's still supported. It's sustained. It has a nice life cycle.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're designing a comm system for like a launch facility. What would keep you up at night? Like what are the hardest challenges in that design when you're delivering that?
I mean, I think the hardest challenges in any project that I look at and touch are, every project's got a corner case, right? Everything fits very, very well, except this one person does this one thing that's hazardous or incredibly critical to every other step that's on here. And this person has this, and this. All right. We can work through that. We can get through it. But those are the things that do keep me up because I look at it too of, you know, particularly if somebody can't tell me enough about what that person's doing, I think about that person, right? That person is going to do this. How do we make sure that they're safe for one, and two, they have everything that they need with the confidence for everybody else that's not with that person to be able to support that and get that done.
Yeah, it's interesting. The corner cases get you every time.
Yeah. Well, especially when it comes into like hazardous operations, those are things that me personally, I like to take those very serious because not only is it, lots of money for somebody who is doing that test or that sequence, it's also somebody, right? It's a person. And those people become friends at some point. So,
Where do you see wireless comm headed in the military? What challenges are they going to see, or where do you see that transitioning to?
yeah, I mean, I think for right now, what we're seeing is a lot of wider coverage, right? I want to go further. I need to go further, or I don't know where I'm going to be. So, traditional wireless communication systems had an assumption that we knew where you were going to be. We knew what you were going to be doing and how many people were going to be there. So we could kind of design the system to hold that. Well, now it's moving very fast. We don't know where we're going to be. We could be on base. We could be off at somebody else's location. We could be downrange. We could be deployed. So trying to look at how do we make sure that that person, no matter where they are, can light up their device, be it a belt pack, a panel, a virtual client on the computer that they're already carrying. How do they light that up, have an easy connection wherever they happen to be? So that's where looking at, using virtual clients on PCs, that was a great thing because they already have those. Looking at the new 5G, the FreeSpeak Cell, the 5G and the private CBRS, wider footprint, wider coverage, a lot better signal for higher density and more people to be able to get connected. So, that progression of, solve that corner case. Now that one person has it, but now somebody else saw it and they want it, and somebody else saw it and they want it. And now we're starting to get further on it. So yeah, I mean, you've got a history with flying. Flight lines can be rather large. They can be a long distance, and getting that full duplex, that non-blocking and that real-time communication across the whole stretch, that's obviously, good for everybody that's along that line, no matter what job they're in.
Absolutely. And so as you look at, the future, of comm, where you're working, but we talked a little bit about wireless. Where do you see this going in 5 to 10 years? Comm in general.
I think from everything I'm seeing right now on comms is, the transport mechanisms, if you will, the signal coverage, if you will, all of those things are I think progressing right now, or at least at the end of their progression. So we know what infrastructures are going to be there. We know what people are using for the next 5 to 10 years. So I think now the real stretch is going to be security. And it's going to be not only just security with where you're working, but now I'm going to be partnering or working with somebody else, and I need to tie into them. So how do we get those tied in together too, with keeping that wide footprint and that security measure in place? When these, geographically dispersed locations, they could have totally different standards, different mechanisms, different people, different opinions. So I think security, that's what I'm seeing.
Well, Shane, how is AI affecting, where you're working? Do you see that coming into play in design, the innovation?
Yeah, I mean, I think just for us at least too, just driving general business functions, right? That's a scratch of the surface on the AI side. Looking at what the market's doing, what users are using, what use cases are out there, but just finding those things and kind of compiling those into a general idea of what people need, right? Looking at, competitor analysis and things like that. But then, yes, certainly getting into the design phase too is, where can we leverage that to, look at where we optimize it so that we can keep the cost down for the end user while delivering them all of the other metrics that they need, and looking at how do we enhance the security and make sure that we're keeping up on that fast enough. So
it's awesome. Well, Jonathan, we're gonna have to wrap this up, but it's been super fun. Are you going to Disneyland?
I spent a lot of time at Disneyland. I don't think I'm gonna make it this trip, but you know, if my daughter ends up watching this, we'll get out here. We did Disney World this year.
Literally across the street.
Yeah, right across the street.
Close. Well, folks want to follow you or follow ClearCom, how best would they do that?
Easiest place, clearcom.com. You can find us on there. We've got subsections on there, use cases. We've got a lot of solutions on there. You can see drawings, you can see things, and yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate it.